You know, in the world of global trade, sometimes the biggest shifts are the ones that happen quietly. So today, we're going to dig into soybeans, where China, the world's #1 buyer, is making some really interesting moves. It has a lot of people asking, what are they up to? And more importantly, what does it mean for everyone else? Let's get into it.
Right, so for as long as anyone can remember, China has been the undisputed heavyweight champion of soybean imports. They buy up a huge chunk of the world's supply to feed their population and their livestock. So the question that's got analysts scratching their heads is, why on earth are they suddenly starting to sell?
And we're not talking about some tiny trial run here. We're talking about 139,000 tons of soybean oil getting exported in just the first half of 2025. Now, to give you an idea of how big a deal that is, that's more than the last 2 years combined. Something pretty big is definitely shifting.
And it gets even weirder. While China is exporting soybean oil, it's also buying 90,000 tons of soybean meal from Argentina, which is a new player for this specific product. Now, in the grand scheme of things, these aren't massive numbers, but it's the strategy behind them that is so telling.
So, are these just a few random blips on the market radar? Well, according to the analysis we're looking at, no way. This is a deliberate, calculated move that fits into a much bigger picture.
What this is, really, is a direct response to the growing shakiness in global trade. China's basically trying to insulate itself, build a more resilient system to control a supply chain that is absolutely vital for its food security and its economy. And this isn't just a bunch of random policies thrown at a wall to see what sticks. Oh no. It's a really clear strategy, and it's built on 3 pillars, all designed to increase what you could call self-reliance, or autonomy. Let's break those down.
Okay, so the first step, diversify where they buy from so they're not leaning too heavily on any one country. Then, second, grow more soybeans right there at home. And finally, number 3, use technology to cut down on how many soybeans they actually need in the first place. Let's take a look at each one.
Okay, so take a look at this. This is the starting point for 2024. The overwhelming majority of imports, we're talking over 90%, come from just 2 countries, Brazil and the US. From a strategic point of view, that is a massive dependency. But keep your eye on that little 8% slice for Argentina and others, because that's where things start to change.
And boom, here's that strategy playing out in real time. Just look at that jump. Imports from Argentina doubled in just 1 year. By bringing in more suppliers, think Argentina, Russia, even Kazakhstan, China reduces its reliance on its main partners, and frankly, it gains a lot of leverage.
Now for the second pillar, which is all about looking inward and boosting their own domestic supply. And this isn't something that just happened overnight. It kicked off with a revitalization plan way back in 2019, and now they're aiming for a whopping 23 million tons by 2025. That is a huge step towards self-sufficiency.
And this last pillar? This one is really clever, and it actually solves that riddle we started with. See, China's massive appetite for soybeans is mostly for animal feed, specifically the protein-rich meal. By rolling out these new low-protein feed formulas, they can keep their livestock industry humming while using way less meal. It's a super smart way to attack the problem from the other end, not just supply, but demand. Okay, so we've seen the strategy. But here's the thing the source material really hammers home. If you think this is just about soybeans, you are missing the forest for the trees. It's time to zoom out. And this quote from the analysis we're using just hits the nail on the head. The entire complicated, tense, and deeply interdependent relationship between the US and China, you can see it all play out right here in the trade of this one little bean. And this right here, this is the heart of the whole issue. It's a relationship of mutual need. China needs a steady supply of soybeans to feed its people and power its industries. And on the flip side, the US needs a steady market to sell all the soybeans it grows. They're basically locked in this economic dance, and both of them have a massive amount to lose if it all goes sideways. So that brings us to the big question about the future. What does this new strategy of autonomy really mean for this deeply intertwined relationship? Is the end goal here to just break away completely?
And that brings us to the word you've got to understand, autonomy. It's so important to get what this means. According to the source material, the goal here isn't decoupling. It's about gaining control, being able to handle a world that's getting more unpredictable. Think of it more like a strategic adjustment.
not an economic divorce.
So what this all really points to is a shift in the power dynamic. While China will probably keep importing from places like the US, it's building a system where its own national strategy is in the driver's seat, not its dependence on any one country. We're just going to see these kinds of independent moves more and more.
And just to be clear, the analysis we're drawing from is pretty firm on this point. It argues that the two economies are so tangled up that a full-on decoupling just isn't a realistic option. Trying to do it would almost certainly create a lose-lose situation for everybody. Which leaves us with this final, really critical question. For decades, we've all operated on this idea that if we're all making money together, we'll all get along. But as countries start to prioritize their own strategic autonomy, is that enough anymore? The story of the humble soybean is showing us that maybe, just maybe, that old rulebook is being rewritten right before our eyes.